Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Vikings Season 4, Episode 2, Kill the Queen. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Vikings, so I'll have to give a spoiler warning for Vikings up to Season 4, Episode 2. If you haven't seen up to this episode, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise things may be spoiled for you. So before I get into my review for this episode, I just wanted to give a quick word to the responses that I got on last week's review, which was the first review I have done for Vikings, because I recently decided to do reviews for all the shows I'm currently watching, and that includes Vikings. And the video got a lot more attention than I expected, and the feedback I got was overwhelmingly positive, as most people liked the review, and I got several comments of encouragement to continue to review Vikings, which I certainly intend to do. And I'd like to thank everyone for all the positive words of encouragement and for checking out the video. However, based on some other feedback I got, I did want to say a few quick words about the show Vikings as it pertains to the actual historic events that it is based on. And I feel it is necessary to point out that the show Vikings is a fictional, narrative-based, scripted TV show that is loosely based off of historic events. It does try to stay true to history as much as it can, but it is first and foremost a narrative-based story rather than a historical documentary. And I am just a guy watching this narrative-based TV show and critiquing it as I would any other narrative-based TV show. I know certain other viewers were inspired to learn more about the historical events that the show is based on and compare it to them, and that's cool. That's great if that's what you want to do, but it's certainly not a requirement to watch the show and enjoy this narrative-based show. And these reviews are not intended to speak to its historical implications, rather critiquing it as a fictional narrative-based show that it is. If you'd prefer a review that looks at it from more of a historical perspective, I would recommend checking out History Buff's channel, as they are quite good at doing this, and it's more of their thing. Me, I'm just a guy watching a TV show. That being said, I am not completely ignorant of the historical situation surrounding the show, which I'm sure some commenters assumed that I was, as I was quite critical of a particular plot point in the previous episode, and it seemed to me some assumed those critiques were based in ignorance of what was to come of the character involved in that particular case based on historical events. However, that isn't the case, as I'm very much aware of that particular character's fate in history. However, that didn't affect my critique of the show and how the show chose to portray that character's narrative structure, and that critique still very much stands because, as I said, this show is a scripted, narrative-based story and therefore open to be criticized on that basis. Sorry for those of you who just want me to get to the review. I just want to give that quick disclaimer because overall the responses I got from my first review were quite positive, and I got several encouraging comments to continue to review Vikings. So that's exactly what I want to do, but I just want to make it clear that I'm just critiquing a narrative-based TV show and not comparing it to the historical events that it's based on. So finally, let me get straight into the episode, Kill the Queen. So this episode was quite interesting. It seemed to be centered mostly around political intrigue. We got 3 different locations, Ragnar's village, Paris, and England. So this mostly seemed to me to be a setup episode, as it's setting up situations that will be explored more this season. But personally, as far as setup episodes go, I felt this was quite a good one, and it kept my attention throughout. So let me start with the Ragnar storyline, as this actually seemed to be the least important storyline of the episode. It dealt mostly with Ragnar dealing with Floki's escape. The only interesting notes I sort of have on this is how Ragnar sent his 2 young sons that are still children to hunt down Floki, which actually had me worried that they might die trying to find him. So I was quite worried about that, but it turns out that wasn't the case, and instead they managed to show off their skills and catch him, which was quite cool. It was also interesting how Ragnar treated Floki's wife, didn't punish her for helping him escape, and instead made sure her and her child were well fed. But it was quite sad later when we learned her child died, and they didn't really explain how. I suppose in those times, children died all the time during winter through various diseases. And again, it was cool how Ragnar wanted to help her out and helped her dig the grave. Makes me wonder if Ragnar will feel guilty because of Floki's losing his daughter and will be a bit more lenient on him, but we'll see. And of course, I have to mention how Ragnar punished Floki, which looked painful as hell. I also thought it was very interesting scene when Ragnar complained to his wife about Floki and how he was upset that Floki wouldn't admit that he was wrong, and when she stuck up for Floki, he just hit her. You know, it makes me think that the relationship is a bit cold now, which kind of builds off of last week. Makes me think Ragnar was dumb for shacking up with her in the first place and should have just stayed with Lagertha. And of course, I'm sure the fact she had cheated on him in the past contributed to why he hit her and mentioned that she would know nothing about trust and loyalty. And then we get a few scenes with Bjorn off on his own, surviving in the wild, doing some ice fishing, which is all well and good, but not much to say about these scenes. It's pretty by the numbers, so we'll just see where they take it from here. So next, let's go to Paris, where we see Rollo giving some sound advice to Count Odo on how best to defend the city from the Vikings. And it does look like Rollo is completely devoted to the Franks now, and I believe he will stay that way. But I have to reassert my complaints about how I don't really buy this transformation. It seemed really sudden and just out of nowhere. Yeah, I know that Rollo kind of wanted to crawl out of Ragnar's shadow, but he seemed pretty devoted to him before, and the fact that he would so quickly betray absolutely everything that he has ever known, I'm sorry, I just do not buy that, but whatever. He's devoted to the Franks now, and so I'll just roll with it. We see him being groomed and clothed as a rural Frank, to which his new bride finds hilarious, so I'm sort of interested to see where they take that relationship. So we get a couple scenes with Count Odo scheming with his consort, who's into the kinky shit, and he tells her pretty much everything that went down. But what's really interesting is in another scene, it's revealed that she's actually playing Odo in order to get information from him. It's been a while since I've seen Season 3, but I'm pretty sure this hasn't been revealed yet. But I don't remember who this guy is that she's revealing the secrets to. I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments, but I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've seen Season 3, and I only saw it once, so I don't really remember. But whoever he is, he's plotting to overthrow Odo as a power play. So it's like I said, this episode had a lot of political intrigue, and I find this really interesting, and I can't see where they take it from here. Okay, so finally, I'll get to England's storyline, which was by far my favorite of the episode, and this goes right along with what I was saying last week on how I actually like the England storyline better than the Paris one and wish they would spend more time on that, but all in good time, I guess. So we start off in Wessex, where we learn there's been a rebellion in Mercia, and the queen that's basically their pawn has been overthrown and is being held prisoner. So King Egbert prepares to try to overthrow the new council and reinstate the queen. And it was at this point in time I was thinking how stupid it was for him to kill everyone at the Viking settlement, because if he hadn't, he could call on them right now to help him attack the rebellion at Mercia. But no, he killed them, so instead he has to keep up guards in case the Vikings return to attack. Seriously, I think that was a really stupid move politically, and I'm still waiting to see if there are any repercussions for that. So anyway, we get a bunch of scenes with King Ekbark messing around with Judith. He tells her he wants her to be free and asks what she wants. She says she wants to be a painter like Athelstan, and so he says he will make it so, and does everything in his power to follow through with that promise. Now, I'm not quite sure what King Ekbark's motivation is here, because this guy is obviously a schemer who's really good at manipulating people and sees 3 steps ahead. However, in this case, I wonder if it's just as simple as winning over Judith's heart and mind, so she'll continue to have sex with him. Seems like a lot of effort just to get some tail, so I've got to think there's more to it than that, but we'll see. It was interesting how Judith mistook the monk that was there to teach her for Athelstan. That sort of made me realize that Judith doesn't know yet that Athelstan is dead. I'm pretty sure that's the case. I also found it interesting how King Ekbark manipulated the Frank monk into teaching Judith for one, he shows the kind of guy that he is, because he doesn't try to intimidate or threaten him into doing it. Instead, he simply manipulates him by getting the bishop to insist that it's okay and convince the monk. Although, I do get the impression that the only reason the bishop convinced the monk was because he was intimidated by King Ekbark. So he did what he wanted. It was quite an interesting power dynamic that's been established. So now, let's get into the heart of the episode, the big battle sequence where Ekbark's son led a rescue mission to rescue the Queen of Mercia. Now, first off, I gotta say, I love this sequence. This was so intense, one of the better battle sequences the show has pulled off. It was really interesting to see the battle tactics employed by the Wessex soldiers in order to storm a superior force. I also like how when it came down to a battle with Ekbark's son and the soldier with the key to the tower that the queen was being kept in, they actually made it really brutal and made you wonder who would win, because I was just expecting Ekbark's son to simply plow through the guy easily like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something, but when he didn't, it was a welcome surprise that to me seemed a lot more realistic and helped raise the stakes. Also, the shouts of "kill the queen" was really intense when the soldiers found that they couldn't get to the tower themselves to kill the queen, so they shouted for others to do it. It was really intense. However, the one little nitpick I have is if they were going to kill the queen at the first sign of rescue, why bother keeping her alive in the first place? Seems like they could have averted the whole rescue attempt in the first place had they just killed her to begin with. Anyway, I'm really curious where they take the Mercia storyline from here, because although they rescued the queen, I think that they haven't defeated the rebellion that took over Mercia, and we'll still have to deal with them. Maybe I'm wrong and they'll just gloss over this. I don't know, but I'm curious to see. And of course, I'm also curious to see how the show will bring the Vikings back into the England storyline, because it's been a while since they were involved, and the show is, after all, called Vikings, so they gotta come back eventually, and I'm really curious to see how the show will choose to play this out. So my rating for Kill the Queen out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. This was a nice episode filled with political intrigue, with fascinating character arcs, and pretty exciting and suspenseful battle sequences to top it off. But it was mostly just a setup episode, but a really good one. It's got me really intrigued to see how the rest of the season will play out. So that's it for my review of Kill the Queen. Be sure to check back here every week as I review episodes of Vikings. Also check out my channel for weekly reviews on other shows like Better Call Saul and The Walking Dead. And I'll be covering some Netflix shows like House of Cards and Daredevil in March. Plus continuing tons of videos on Game of Thrones and more. So make sure you subscribe so you can keep up with all of that, and thanks a lot for watching.